80's panel. I just wanted to thank these hot ladies for joining us. So let's start off, let's just go down the line. What made you all want to pursue a career in acting?
I was going to try to say something funny. But first I want to say bonjour. Bonjour. Has everyone, does anyone has not seen Better Off Dead? I just have to ask. Everyone's seen Better Off Dead? How many of you have seen Better Off Dead? Yeah, okay, good. I just want to say we're good. All right, what got us into acting? Okay, I'm Diane Franklin, and I started acting, I have to say, my earliest memory of wanting to be an actor was 4 years old. I just felt it, and I think, you know what it was? I think I was a television baby. So, like, my parents didn't, like, I mean, at 4 years old, you're watching TV, and so I saw Marlo Thomas on the TV show Batgirl, and I don't know if anyone remembers that, and she was the only dark-haired actress at the time. There was no, like, Bewitched, and I Dream of Jeannie, and she played an actress on the show, and I think that really had an influence on me. I just loved her energy, and I loved her positiveness, and I just said, I want to be on TV, and that's, my parents like, what do we do with this child? I don't understand this. Why does she want to? They had no idea. They were like German immigrants, and they were like, we don't know what to do. So that's, I think, the beginning of how it just came to me. It's a very early age. I just, I want to do that. How do you do that? So here's my story.
My name is Amanda Wyss, and I started acting when I was 11. I started in theater, and my first 2 plays I did were horror themed, surprise. And the first was I played in The Innocents, which was a really wonderful thriller at a theater in LA. And then the second play I did after that was I played Rhoda in The Bad Seed. And it just sort of went from there. And from there I got an agent, at 11. And they were like, wow, you were really creepy, we can do something else. And so then I did mostly theater until I was in my early 20s, around towns. And then my friends started all that exciting stuff happening.
Okay, how does this gonna work? Hi. Hello. I'm Jill Schoelen. It's a pleasure to be here. Lovely to be with Diane and Amanda and Sue. So happy and so lovely to be with all of you. Thank you so much. Acting found me. Came out of the womb singing, and I did. I came out of the womb singing, and at 7, as I always say, I put my feet on any coffee table I could get my feet onto, and sang, I don't know how to, but I would belt it out, the way Andrea Ricardo did with Tomorrow, whatever that song she said. So, and little by little, when I first broke into the business and commercials, I did singing, dancing commercials, and little by little, just the acting took over. It found me. That's fault. I love it though.
And if you don't know, Jill has an amazing singing voice, and if you haven't had the chance to hear her sing, check out she has CDs and downloadable music, I think.
You're so sweet.
No, but seriously, you need to hear her sing. Yeah, it's unbelievable. I have to say, I let her sing.
We are on each other's fans, by the way. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of her singing. Well, acting too, but.
Hi, my name is Suzanne Snyder. Thank you for being here, all of you. It's really a pleasure to know that people still actually care about the work that we did so long ago. So it's nice to see all of you, so thank you very much. So my story is very different than all of theirs. I didn't want to be an actress. I was at Northwestern, and I was in pre-med. And a very dear friend of mine, who I went to high school with, Richard Marks, who's a very successful singer, took pictures of me and said, you should start modeling. And I started doing that in Chicago, and an agent found me. in Chicago, and I started working, and then started to learn how to act.
Wow.
In all interesting, so it's a little different. So that was how I kind of fell into acting. And Jill was one of the first people I met in LA.
And then we ended up in the same
We were
acting class.
Three of us were all in the same acting class together.
Yeah.
And because I became friends with Amanda's younger sister, Megan. So Jill and I, Jill does have an amazing voice, and it's true, she does get up on coffee tables. But it's worth it to hear her sing. She's a beautiful voice, and she is selling her CDs here.
Oh, you
They're
are?
worth it.
Are you really?
No, I was listening to the songs this morning while we were getting ready.
Are you really? Do you really have some? Yeah, I brought
Yeah. So that was how I started acting. So thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about Better Off Dead. Ladies were in it together. Talk about working on the film. How did you get involved? And one question about what it was like working with John Cusack.
Oh, all right. So just want to tell you, just right off the bat, John Cusack is adorable and wonderful. We loved working with him, and he loved working on Better Off Dead. He loved it, okay? As much as he said, like, now, whatever. While we shot it, we had the best time. We were laughing, and we would work all day and then, like, get together at night and hang out in front of the fireplace and talk. And it was a very endearing film for everyone who was on it. Everybody, people, like, you'd never, ever expect, like, Vincent Schiavelli, like, you're thinking, he did Cuckoo's Nest. Why would he want to be in Better Off Dead? He was like, I want to be in this movie no matter what. Like, so it was a shock to all of us, I think, when it came out in the 80s, because before that, like, when you're an actress and you do feature films, there's always something that has to get the audience out of their house and into the theater. So there'd be gratuitous nudity, or perhaps like bad language. There'd be something like you, as an audience member, they would have to offer something in film that you couldn't get at home. And of course, there was no cable or HBO or anything. So, that was the enticement. But for Better Off Dead, that's what was such a shock, because this movie was actually wholesome, and you could show your kids. And the people, CBS, like, when they decided to do it, in fact, there was actually some bad language in Better Off Dead, and CBS took it out, which was great. That was actually smart, because now we could, share it with the family generations, which is, for us, a gift. Like, that's just so great. But Better Off Dead was, all those actors who went, what? Like, this script is actually funny. Like, we want to be in this. Like, it was, as actors, you're not going, oh, I love this movie, but, they're just too much blood and guts. Like, whatever it is that was about that film. So that was the gift for us. It was a gift for them. And for me personally, playing that role of Monique was a gift role. That was the gift, like, to play a role model of a female that's feminine, but at the same time is capable. I take that really seriously. I love that character. That was my favorite role. Because that, I think, to me, was closest, that spirit and that positive thinking is closest to me as a person. So I am so excited that I was able to do it and keep the coat. Most of you don't know I have the coat from the film. So if you come see me, you can take pictures with it. And I think I'm going to eventually make a book and have everybody who wears the coat send a photo in, and we'll call it the excellent coat of the last American friendship stage babe of the 80s, right? How great would that be? So anyway, I have ideas, just like me. But so there, I talked to them. But it was, love that film. I look up exist. I'm French, but I do a very good American accent, so I don't want to blow it for you people. I am French, right? And so I do a very good accent, so I will tell you more better.
Better Off Dead, the script was the funniest script I've ever read. The script is actually funnier than the movie. I think, like, you know what I mean? Like, it was really funny. And when I auditioned for it, my audition scene was the cartoon. I think they just wanted to see if I could do the mean cartoon. So we had so much fun on that movie. And you know what? Yeah, the thing is, we were all really young, and the director was only 1 year older than us. And so it was a bunch of kids up at a ski lodge with one grown-up producer who had no control over what was going on.
That's right.
And we just had so much fun. All we did was laugh. And working with John was great. And we stayed friends over the years. He's just smart and intense and cool and loves his craft. And he's just a cool person. He's a nice guy. He's a nice guy. He's intense, but he channels it in a good way.
Oh, wait, also have to mention, when I auditioned, they wanted to see me as Beth, but I wanted Monique. So I just came in and looked like this at the audition. And I said, oh, do you want to be as Monique? They're like, no, we want to see you as Beth. No, you want to see me as Monique. So, but you, right? We're all like going for different characters. And as an actor, usually you're just like, okay, I'll just play this part. But I was like, no, I got it. No, I got to do this. This is like my thing. Now for you, were they just seeing you for Beth? Yeah. But then Elizabeth Daly, they saw her for Beth or for her part. So it was interesting. They didn't know what they were seeing.
Did we go to a callback together? I don't remember. I don't think I met you till we got there.
Yeah, we didn't meet until we got on set.
When I did Knock on Elm Street, Heather and I auditioned. Everybody read for Nancy, and then on the callback, Wes brought Heather and I in the room to read together, and then just told us we had the parts right there. And then brought in boys and mixed and matched. But yeah, so like I couldn't remember if we read.
I just went in and met Savage and the producer, Jackie, right? And that was it. And then they were like, they're going to make the decision. And that night, Woody. And then I got the call. That was the night where, you know when you're acting and you're like, I really want this part. And you're trying that. I'm going to think about it. Going to move on. No. I really want that part, please. And then I found out and I was so happy. I mean, that doesn't happen all the time. You go for something that you so want. It happens, yeah. That's love. So, there you go. Yay.
So, Suzanne, you were in Weird Science. Talk about working with such an amazing cast and some experiences that you had on that set.
Oh, well, so actually, something similar. I went in and read for Breakfast Club with Kelly Preston. And they told us that John said, I'm working on a movie. I'm writing it right now. And I want to bring you guys back for Weird Science. Wow. It wasn't Weird Science, that it was just a movie. And he did bring me back. And I originally was supposed to be the blonde's girlfriend, because the blonde and brunette, because Judy has brown hair. But I had gotten my wisdom teeth pulled, and my face changed. And Judy had been to Europe and France and gotten a little rounder. Right. And so they had to switch us around because of just the shapes of us and everything at that point. So that was kind of funny. It was a really fun movie to do because I went back home and shot it. So we shot at Northbrook Court, which is where I grew up and shot in high school with all of my friends. And the house that they used for the missile to come through was my friend's house, John Molnar. Oh my God. Who's actually married to Katie Couric now. But John was 1 year below me in high school and dated one of my closest friends. So I walked up to the house and Mr. Molnar was there. So it was kind of fun. It was in Highland Park. It was where I grew up. So my family would come to the mall and hang out with everyone, and then I would go downtown to Chicago, in limos. With cast. And they were really into White Castle and everything. So it was a really fun time and very similar. A lot of young kids all hanging out together. And originally Kelly LeBrock was not Lisa also. Kelly Ember was Lisa, and it didn't work out very well. And so Kelly came in last minute.
It's all like high school, like we all know each other, and it's crazy.
Yeah. So it was a really fun time, and it was I think it was, Bill Paxton just recently passed away, and I think it was a really powerful time for Bill, because Bill was a little older than us, about 10 years, sometimes 15 years older than some of us. And Bill watched all the boys just getting wilder and wilder and more kind of And Bill had already gone through that. So Bill was very kind of like cool and older and chill and kind of tried to guide the boys to not go down the road that Robert Downey went down. You know, so, and a lot of Bill's lines were lines that he came up with on his own. So you never knew what he was going to say. And so it was super fun. And Chet was very different, the way it was written from how Bill ended up presenting it. But he was so awesome, they just kind of let him go. It's great fun. Yeah.
Jill, you played Stephanie in Snyder.
I did.
I read that you were very disturbed by the final scene.
Oh.
Could you talk a little bit?
Yes, I will, but I just have to, I need to piggyback. Okay, so Sue and I have been friends for like a lot of years, and I always call her my spirit sister because we did a play together for years where I played spirit and she played my sister. She was orphan Amy White. So she's my spirit sister, and I have to say, I've never heard that story. Because we never talk about the work. We talk about, like, you know, boyfriends and husbands and children, but movies that I know. It's like, and Bill Paxton was that way. I was so fortunate to work with him on, I think, his first job. And he was very spontaneous. I remember the producers were like, but, and it's a big loss, big loss. And I love that movie. He directed the greatest game ever played. I'm so in love with that film. Yeah.
Such a great director.
So what was the question? Okay, the last scene. So when I act, I go approach acting maybe the way a lot of actors do. I don't really know, I just know what I do. And what I do is I don't pre-plan. I like only being in the moment. I never will you see me do a take similar twice in a row. I hit my marks. I know exactly what to do with the camera. I know what the camera's doing at all times, so I technically am very on top of it. A lot of my friends were hanging out with actors. I always hung out with the DP. So, and then I would approach it, and I would like, I'm a little cuckoo in that I am a very feeling person. I like have these big emotional porous thing going on here. So when I shot that last scene, I take on the character so much that I would go to bed every night and have horrific nightmares that I was being chased by a man and being killed, and that's what I've said. Because I take it on like, you know, and I've learned, what was that movie? Beloved, is that one with the film, Beloved? Yeah, okay. So I remember I heard this interview once, and I'm like, I should have done that. That's what I should have done. Those scenes in that movie were so intense for the actors that after each take, I'm also a big crier, so I apologize if I cry. But I found this so amazing that after they did the takes, because it had dark energy, you know, that they would hug each other and say, I love you after the scenes to clear the energy. Because you take on these people, right? This is serious, and we're having fun right now. But when you do the work, it's serious. It's your work. And these people, they have a life of their own that's on the page. And I think of it being an actor like a waitress. I'm there to serve. I'm there to serve whatever that script those people are. So I took on that character, and I had nightmares every night.
I just have to add something that's interesting. When I did Amityville with Burt Young, and just to piggyback on what you just said, Burt would be so intense, and he would be so real, and we were all into it, like you said. And in between the take cut, he would be joking, and we'd all be laughing. Because he understood that. And I was like a new person in the business, so I'm like, what's happening? Okay, it's light now, right? It's like, but that's exactly it. You take that energy and you have to switch it up because otherwise it's too intense. So my memories of Burt Young were, he was hilarious and so funny and was the nicest guy. But it's because of that when you do a horror film, the director's job is to keep the tone. and he doesn't break it, and the crew understands it, and so he rides it, and he's like, keeps that tone. You have to follow where the actors are going, but the director keeps the tone. So it is interesting you say that.
Yeah, and I think as actors, not to get too deep, but it is really important when you do those scenes to I did not understand that when I was younger. Yeah. And then some directors, not saying Joe Rubin, who's a wonderful director, who directed The Stepfather, but there are some that they're afraid that you might lose that wonderful thing that's going on with you. So they kind of, they push that. They like that you're a wreck. So you stay in that emotional condition, because when all that stuff you guys love, all of that stuff, I don't care what film it is, the thing you love best are those organic moments, the ones you can't make up, the ones you can't predict. It just literally happens. It's just like a thing that it happens, and the actors after are like, wow, didn't that feel good? And you had no idea. You can't predict how it went.
Because you can't do and watch at the same time. You have to be so totally into the moment that you can't watch yourself, and so you have to give that vulnerability. Yes.
Jill's a really good director.
Yeah.
You guys are sweet. It's true.
Good director, producer too.
So Diane, and Amityville too, when you took the job, did you know about the story of Amityville?
Yes, but it's interesting. I was 20 when I got that film, and when it was introduced to me, I was after Last American Virgin. Nobody knew who I was. That film did not come out yet. But I always wanted to do a horror film. Because when do you get to die in life and enjoy it, right? Never, right? So to me, I was like, this is really cool. Now, so the film had incest in it. Those of you, I hope I'm not doing a, surprise.
Earmuffs if you haven't
Right,
seen it.
if you haven't seen it. And I suppose if I had a brother, that would be incredibly disturbing to me, but I didn't. So to me, it was like an acting role. So first, the subject matter was more like, okay, to me it could have been a guy, like it didn't have that feeling to me, but if I had had a brother, maybe I would have been more hesitant to take that role. I did know that there was nudity, and my concern was not so much to do the nudity, but that I didn't get cast just for nudity. And I think that that's something also actresses, if you're an actress, and if you're at all attractive, you're going to be approached with casting acts to do nudity in certain places or jobs, but that doesn't mean you have to take it, and it also doesn't, for me it was always it has to be important within the story. It has to be part of the story, because I always have in my contract, no photographs will be taken, but it has to be organic to the situation and important to the story. So when I came up, though, I honestly, when I read the story, I'm like, there's no reason that I should be cast in this, because there's so many actresses, they could have picked anybody. It wasn't about curly hair, it wasn't a time period piece, I was like, I really didn't think I was going to get called back, but I just went, okay, I'll just audition. And here's a very cool story. The girl who was between me and this other actress for the role, this was Elizabeth Berridge. And I don't know if you know who Elizabeth Berridge, but she's the one who got Amadeus, and it was between me and Elizabeth Berridge for Amadeus. So I got Amityville, and then later on, she got Amadeus. But for some reason, and the only thing too is, like I was just saying, we were so different in personality and voice, and it was always surprising to me that we would go on being sort of up against roles at the same time. But then the only thing I could figure out was that we were both petite brunettes. That was it. I mean, as a casting director, maybe that was the call. I don't know. So in Amityville, when I did do the role, it was, we did a screening test, we auditioned, we did screen tests, and my real feeling was that when I did that part, I wanted to just do the most heartfelt, connected, respectful performance, giving respect to the DeFeo murders and that character. And also, just one other point, I did not research the character because I knew, based on the story, that I had to be the most innocent, and I didn't want to scare myself if I had known too much about Amityville. So I wanted to come in innocent and just explore that, and then sort of be just taken by surprise. So it was a great learning experience. I loved working with the other actors. I'm telling you, all were young. I learned a lot from them. It was part of the learning experience. And I liked being in the body bag, so sorry I did. It was like, I was like, this is so cool. It carried me out. Zip, unzip, and I'm like, anyway, there you go.
Amanda, in working,
Speaking of body bags.
in working with Wes on Nightmare on Elm Street, how much were you able to make the character your own, or were you really bound by the script?
That's an interesting choice of words, only because Wes is such a phenomenal writer that the characters, especially for a horror film, I mean, he's sort of like, that movie was sort of the beginning of more, what's the word I'm looking for, like story-told horror. And so the characters were written really well. So there wasn't any pushing up against what was on the page, like that we needed to break out of it or anything like that. And he had such a clear vision of where psychologically he was taking that film. And for me personally, so much of, I mean, every day that I worked on that film was just that it was a part of me dying, because I just died for the first 20 minutes of that movie. And it's just a really brutal, like when you look back on it, I think part of the visceral attraction of that film was that, you know, I looked like I'm like 14 and literally I'm being killed for 20 minutes at the beginning of that film. And so Wes handled that really delicately to have it be scary, but also, you know, it's very sad actually. So my character was, he always was molding it to just be, he wanted us to be real and spontaneous, and my character especially, you know, it had to, there's an interesting thing I heard somebody say once, that horror in and of itself is a reaction to society and to the psyche, and that all good horror is intrinsically sad. And a well-written horror movie, part of the reason you're taken in is that it's a sad tale of broken hearts and lost souls that are struggling to survive. And I think Wes really portrayed that really well in the script. And so definitely, you know, it was an interesting and fun role to play, but you know, mine was mostly physical, like really in that thing. So
You realize the struggle.
yeah. Well, yeah, and it was like I was the red herring. And so like we had to walk certain lines because he wanted the first couple of minutes for you to think that I was going to be the girl. And so like he was interesting because he'd be very specific, and I was so young, and I was like, you know, out of drama school and thought I knew everything. And he was like, I was like, oh yeah, okay, whatever. But he was doing really specific things, like little gestures he would have me do that psychologically led the audience to think that I was going to not die. So it was interesting. So he's very specific, and it was just so wonderful to work with. And he had children our age, so he treated us with, you know, we were, you know, not staying close with him.
Now, Jill and Amanda, you both worked with Robert Englund, Phantom of the Opera, you know. Can you tell us about what it was like working with him? And I'm just curious if he was any different on set from the different producers.
I'm going to piggyback again.
Nice.
Because I did a film with Wes Craven that nobody knows about, because it was a movie before he went into features. He did TV movies. So I did this TV movie with him, with Michael Beck and the wonderful, brilliant Beatrice Straight, called Chiller. And I remember so vividly, because there's such a profound team of directors. It's not, I want to say this really clearly, it's not an accident that Wes Craven became Wes Craven, in parentheses, because he's methodical. He knew exactly what he wanted, and then left a door open to see what would happen within that.
Nice.
And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You guys know exactly.
That's a great director then.
And yeah, it really was. With Robert Englund, I have to tell you, I mean, I love this man. He is such a wonderful human being, and there was just, that script, the Phantom of the Opera script, was, for my character, had huge issues, but I was in no position to do anything about those issues. And that particular scene was not well written, but I was not going to pass on the opportunity.
He talks about that movie a lot on panels when I'm with him. He has a soft spot in his heart for that movie and a big crush on Jill. And so he brings her up often on panels because I sit on panels with him a lot, and he's like, well, Jill. And I'm like, la la la, Jill. It's like, no, I'm just kidding. I love him. But he has a soft spot for that movie, and he talks about it often.
Yeah, well, he was so lovely, and this poor man, he had to go to work so in the middle of the night
To do makeup again.
You to be put in makeup, and he'd sit in that chair, and I don't know about you guys, but I am like jumping at the bit to get out of the chair in a half hour. And so he would sit in it for hours upon hours. I mean, sometimes 8 hours, ridiculously long time. But I loved working with him. The thing is, I always say, to the acting community at large, the larger community of filmmakers, this man knows what he's doing. He's the real deal. And it's so wonderful, Freddy Krueger, all of that. But, for every blessing, it's like, you flip the coin over. There's got to be a downside to Freddy Krueger. And I would imagine, I don't no idea, but he could be working every day of the week, not in the horror genre. He's just a lovely, wonderful, fine, well-trained actor that understands the craft. And I enjoyed him, and I love Nancy, his wife.
He's a great storyteller.
He is. She's just wonderful to work with. A pleasure.
His wife is so nice.
I know.
She loves his wife. We all love Robert's wife. And Robert, I think, perfected the storytelling after sitting for years doing Freddy makeup at Phantom of the Opera, where he's stuck in a chair for hours, where all of us would just be like, oh my God, just leave it, I'm done. And I think that's where you you'll just sit there if you're in there with him and just tell story after story, or do Shakespearean monologues, which will make you weep. He's delightful.
And I just have to say, on a spiritual level, he's always been a joyful human being. He's always filled with joy and gratitude. And it's quite remarkable. Like you are that way.
Yeah,
you all are that way. But I say Diane because I just met Diane at the airport
We
for
just
the very
met.
first time.
We're blabbing in the hallways. People are telling us to be quiet. We're like, seriously, we're just all so happy to see each other, because when we're acting, we're all in different, we'd get calls for auditions, and we'd see each other in passing, but we never got to stop because we'd be going through the audition and then leave. So these conventions are so great for us, because we're like, oh, well, I loved you in that. I loved you in that. You were so good. Oh, okay, and I just have to say, in between everything, how many of you have seen the ID? All right, guess what? Oh, thank you, John. All right, how great.
You guys haven't seen the ID?
You have to see the ID. All right? You have to.
I'm speaking to that row right there. I know those people. What?
That's it. Sorry.
You're dead to me.
All right.
Krueger.
It's supposed to be phenomenal.
You've got to see it. I streamed it just during this big top trip because I've been trying to see it but had no time. Stream it off Amazon Prime, or I didn't have Blu-ray players, so I couldn't get Blu-ray. Stream it. I'm telling you, Oscar-winning performance. I'm serious. This is her film. I've never stayed in this for watching Craven. See this movie?
I mean, Sir Craven.
I was shocked. I know her this week, but this is her vehicle, and all I can tell you is, I loved it, and I felt terribly sorry for her because she's wonderful, but you felt, oh my gosh, this movie. So, promise me you'll see it. Okay, just see it. I'm not wasting your time or your money. It's amazing.
Thank you. Oh my gosh.
Gotta see it.
Sorry to leave you out.
Shawnee, did you like the movie?
Absolutely. I voted for Amanda for the Fangoria Chainsaw Hall of Fame on the strength of that role,
See?
as well as what she's done in the community.
to, what do you think I would concentrate on for the last 10 or 20 years?
Oh.
The outfit doesn't give it away.
No. Yep.
So, Night of the Creeps, Suzanne.
Oh,
You worked on that film. It really blends horror and comedy very well. How do you think it was able to do that where so many other films fail?
Well, I think the actors had a really good sense of playing the horror, but also it was camp. And it was written that way also. They wrote it in so that you could have a one-liner that would just like for everyone, if that makes sense. So that was, that I think that was really what it was.
And Pittsburgh's own Tom Atkins was
Yep.
Oh, sorry, I'm not talking to anyone. I'm shy. Tom was one of the nicest people to work with and so fun to go to conventions with. Whenever we're on conventions, we have breakfast together. I love him. He's the nicest guy. And so talented, just so talented. And I think because he was a little older than us and really got it, he was able to also guide some of the actors that maybe got a little too serious or too intense, like, lighten it up. It's, you know, so he, because of how he performed in the movie, everyone was able to follow that also. Yeah.
Diane, you were just recently in the Toe Tag production, the final film.
Does anybody know Toe Tag? Raise your hand if you know Toe Tag.
I just met them today.
Oh, you did? Yeah, good, good, good.
I'm like, great,
All
I
right.
know them.
So I put out like interviews and stuff, and I've said over the years, I'd love to get back to doing some horror and sci-fi. And so Fred Vogel, who is head of Toe Tag Films, contacted me. And you know, it's one of those wonderful moments where he's thinking, she's not going to respond. This is Facebook. And I'm sitting there going, I'm looking for scripts that are good, and I don't care. Like, I want whoever's good material, like, I'm into, you know? Actors, you'd be surprised. We just want to act. We want to act in good things. He sends me this script, and I freaked out. And I went, I want to do this. And so I had actually also been approached by another film called Waking Nightmare just before, and I felt like, you know, I've got my chops ready to go, and I'd love to do it. And it's very hard for women our age to be like the central role of a film nowadays. It would usually be like a film about a young person, and then there's a token mom or dad, right? So you get one scene, you know, and you're like, oh, you'd like to, but, you know, that's why these horror films and these independent films are so special, because you're going to see us actresses from the past work, and like you're going to be able to see how we developed, and the richness of our experiences and our maturity as actresses is going to show in these films. So I'm a really, when he approached me to do this film, it's called The Final Interview. I was extremely happy because it was a role where I play a news director, and it takes place in the 80s, and it's about a guy who's going to his final interview before he goes to the electric chair. And I have, so I'm recording this show, and my ex-husband, played by Ranger Hines, is giving this interview. And I saw the rough cut, and it was incredibly gripping. I even showed it to my daughter, who's a filmmaker. She's in her early 20s, and she couldn't take her eyes off it. She went, oh, wow. So that, to me, shows that it's really good from every generation standpoint, not just from like seeing people that you know, but the fact that it keeps you on your toes when you watch it. So I'm really excited. I'm going to actually be doing some ADR while I'm here to finish it up. And I think it should be done around May. So keep your eyes out for it, the final interview. And actually, if you friend me, or not friend because my friend at Facebook's filled, but if you go to Twitter, you go to Diane Franklin 80, the number 80, I will let you know when that film comes out. That's like our connection where we can, like, I can tell you cool things about that film. See it first, okay? That's the most important film. Then you see mine. All right, okay.
So one final question before we wrap this up. You guys were in some of the most classic comedies, horror films of the 80s. What is it about that decade that lent itself to so many amazing films?
Partly, just in like a quick answer, I think there wasn't the proliferation that there is now. So like now, I mean, honestly, it's from the very bottom, like people are making movies on a flip phone, to, this is back in the day when it was rather rare to have an independent feature. So it was a tighter market, your scripts had to be better. People really took great care to cast because they were made by serious filmmakers for the most part, or young coming up filmmakers. So I think that that's partly the reason. I think it's that era was the end of studio made or high quality independent. Not that there aren't amazing movies made now, it's not that, but there's such a huge proliferation of people making films that sometimes the good ones get lost within that, where like in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, the movies didn't get lost. There was only one movie released a month. Yeah. So movies had a chance to be found and seen. So I think it doesn't have much, it's not necessarily that these movies were just made in the 80s. There was a proliferation of cool teen films that went on in the 80s, and I think that is part of it. And they were geared towards all of us, and I think we bought that, but there was less of them, and they were very well made.
Okay, I'll just interject also, the reason that 80s was really specific, it was the explosion of films focusing on teens. And it started with Brooke Shields, because Brooke brought like the pretty, or like the kind of the aesthetic, the teen was like interesting. And it allowed that suddenly at the early 80s we started with those teen films, and now the teen was the focus of the films, and who wanted to go see the films but teenagers. So that era was very specific and very like a gift to all of us as actors, because there were no teen leads in the 70s. It was like adult leads with kid characters. But in 80s we now had not only teen leads, but we had female teen leads. Where does that come from, right? Molly Ringwald is a classic example. One of the things that's so endearing is the fact that she was different, and different was in the 80s. Different was part of what was endearing about it was that time period of let's allow people who are different and to be the lead. It's very different. Anyway, go for it.
Well, I think one of the big differences also was in the 80s and before that, the way the movie companies were run. People were artists, and they entered into movies to make art because they were creative people. And I think that the actors were classically trained, and it wasn't about how they looked. Look was important, but they also had to have, and I'm not saying that actors nowadays don't have skills, but it wasn't just a talking head. There were more talent. And I think that the 80s were right before the transition to where accountants and businessmen started taking over the movie business because they saw a way to make a lot of money.
Sure.
So, the people that ran the studios worked their way up from the mailroom and had a deep love for film.
Yeah.
And I think that there was a huge transition after the 80s to people from New York in the stock market and everything coming in and wanting to run the business and make money making movies. So the art form was, it shifted, I think, a little bit. Yeah, me.
You said, that's what I was trying to say, and she said it better. Yeah.
I'm fascinated by this. I'm just, my brain is like, doing Google search right now. But it's interesting to me. I have an original script. I own one of the few original Gone with the Wind scripts. And I've been thinking of putting it up for auction, so I've talked to a couple of auction houses about it, and in the process of it, this idea of the 80s movies have come up. Like, well, what about your 80s script? Well, I'm not giving away my script. But the Gone with the Wind script, mostly because it's deteriorating, and I want someone that really knows how to take care of it, to take care of it. But the people at Christie's auction, at these huge auction houses that are like selling these original pieces of artwork or whatever, they want 80 scripts. Wow. There's just this market for this love of 80s films. I don't know why. I don't know if what I'm going to say is any truth to it. It's just an idea. But in the late 70s, it was beta tape.
Oh yeah, right, beta.
And then in the 80s, we moved into VHS. It was the first time we could take it home and own it.
Exactly.
And have a piece of it. So everybody got a piece of Suzanne and of Amanda and Diane. They got to take it home. They got to take
Watch
these
it over
people
and
home and
over
watch
again.
it. And it made you, okay, what really? Come on, you guys. I can't use, there's these lovely girls, so I can't say the bad word I want. But my feeling is if it's not joyful in life, in what we do, if it's not joyful, and it doesn't move us, then what the, why bother? And I don't know, but I sense, Bobby Carly's name was again, but because it brings me so much joy that it's just overflow. But in people owning these VHSs, it taps into your emotional being. There was some, right? Your name shaking hands. There's an emotional experience that you had. You related to these people, and it's different now. Now it's so spread out. It's so watered down. Where in the 80s it was a concentrated version of it because it was like one thing, VHS, and there was like, hello, Showtime, and HBO. I mean, it was very limited. ABC, CBS.
Oh yeah.
Right? There was like nothing. It was like, what? Another networks? Fox is going to have TV series? It was like,
Yeah, what's that?
The only way you could binge watch was with VHS. So,
yeah.
Think
So
about
it's
we're the first generation that our movies we can see that our movies are being watched on and on. Like the generation before, they never got to experience the happiness that we do. Like you say, hey, I saw that movie. You can watch something from the 80s, and this was not possible. People would, you'd be like, who's that? I don't remember that. You're like, who's Lucille Ball, right? Do you even know who Lucille Ball is? No, right? Exactly. That's exactly my point. And everyone's going, what? And it's because we're the first generation to experience this happiness, and these conventions are an example of this happening. This wasn't happening for all those people. We are very, very fortunate that we are being remembered. When I say remembered, it's like we're lucky because people can take this home and watch it. And your parents can bring home one of our films and go, oh, look at this. And like, this is what I grew up watching when I was your age, but we can't, it's not crazy. So, very special moment in time.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Remember? I remember that.
Yeah, and it's like that experience, you know, when people, how they hold on to the music. Like when we were teenagers, like, why are our parents listening to those songs from?
Exactly. You go to the supermarket, you hear 50s songs, and your kid, you're like, why are you playing 50s music? It's like, no. And it's because they're the ones with the money. So they're playing what they like, right? You go now to the 80s music is playing, right?
And I just to piggyback on that, this is a little bit of a pet peeve for me personally. It's like just to equate, to make this analogy between music and the movies, there was so not a lot being done, so you really had to know your business. And just the guys that were making music in the 80s, I know so many of these guys. These guys, they may be doing this and long hair and whatever, but they knew music. They understood harmonic structure. They understood something beyond 1-4-5. You know, when they did their music, they were the real deal. And we also had to know in making movies. Now people bring up, anyone can make a movie with an iPhone.
Yes. And they do, right? Yes.
Well, it was an honor to sit up here with you ladies and ask questions.
Can we get questions
If
from
you
the
have-
audience?
We're running a little time. If you haven't seen these ladies at their table, please go up and
If
get
you have any
autographs.
questions, come up and you
Yep.
can ask us in person.
Let's give a round of applause.